Yeah. Cool. I'll sign it on my computer to see if it works.
All right, so basically what the screen saying is everything's good. This is not a Rails website really, but it's to say that Rails is set up properly until you override what's called the root, which is just this like base directory here under localhost 3000. It's going to show this.
I still can't open the localhost like 3000.
Are you doing just like dynamic?
It's just not going to the screen.
Okay, Kunal can come around and help you. So if you have any problems, just make sure Kunal knows, and he can help straighten you out. So wait, who's having problems? Just one more time. Kunal, do you see everyone that's?
Yeah.
Cool, awesome. Cool, so let's make our first controller. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make our controller. And like what we said earlier, the controller is basically the sort of, when a request comes in, that's where you go to after routing to do all the logic. So generally, you'll stay in one controller. The way you do that, Rails uses generators, which make the process of creating an application much more simple. So it takes all the components of Rails and makes it completely accessible from the command line. So let's create a new controller. So you're going to say Rails, generate, controller. And today we're going to make a to-do list app. It's not the most exciting app. It does a good job at demonstrating all the components of what goes into the average web app. Views, databases, controllers, etc. So we're going to create a controller called to-dos. Cool. So as you can see, these are all the files that were created. And before we go a little further, I'm going to go over the directory structure of Rails. Sure, yeah. Just one second. Otherwise, no reference. Alright, so we're going to quickly go over the directory structure of Rails. It's not the most interesting topic, but it'll give you an idea of what's going on. So basically, Rails is divided into these folders. Most of them right now you don't need to worry about. The ones you do care about right now are going to be app and config. So config basically handles all the things that need to happen that Rails just assumes. Rails is meant to be a web server. A lot of programming languages or frameworks sort of are very wishy-washy. Rails is meant to be like an HTTP server, which is supposed to be a web app. So there's a lot of the configurations automatically taken care of for you and through here, but a lot of it's also through assumptions. Like Rails just knows that you're going to go to a controller because that's just how you use Rails. So the other one is the app folder. So if everyone can see app, does everyone got this generated, right? That who's working? You can see all this stuff. So basically, assets. This is going to be like your images, your CSS, etc. Things that never change. And if something's changing and it's in assets, you're not doing this right. Your controller. We talked about controllers before. Everyone right now should have a to-dos controller inside their controller folder. Helpers are just sort of little scripts that you might use throughout your app. So in order for dry, which is do not repeat yourself, you can have little functionality that you may use across controllers. What's supposed to be inside the controller folder? The controllers are all your controllers, so you should have the controller that we just generated. Yeah, so the command for that was, if anyone else missed that, this was the command for that. So everyone, okay, cool. Next folder is mailers. This is if you ever send email. What is it? This is in whatever this is in app within whatever directory you created when you created your new app. So if you said Rails new, whatever you put there, it's in that directory under app. The next one is models. Models, again, are a way of taking a Ruby object and mapping it to a database. And then views. So views, this is going to be HTML, that kind of thing. HTML, you might have JSON, whatever you're going to do, views are where they are. So right now, everyone should have a controller. So we're just going to go in, open your text editor, and bring up that controller. Right now, I'm opening to-dos controller in the controllers file. All right, so the first thing we want to do is let's just test a basic website. So let's go in and create an index for this. Every method in Rails is going to be automatically mapped to the same view, and I'll show you what that means in a second. So first, what we're going to do is let's just put. All right, so let's go a little bit over routing first. So basically, as I said earlier, when your request comes in, the first thing it hits routing. And then routing basically assigns the request to a controller, and from there on, the controller takes care of it. So let's do a little example of that. Let's do for the root page, which is that page you got there, let's just make it go to that controller that we just created. So you're just going to say root.
Wait, what are we editing right now?
This is in routes, in the config folder. So yeah, sorry, it's kind of hard to read. I don't know if I can make that bigger. So this is right in the file I'm editing right now is in, well, you can see it. Is right now in config routes.rb. Does everyone see that? It's config in your app folder. It'll be config and then /routes.rb. Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to do root. So root is just the root of your site. So if someone goes to google.com and there's nothing else in the URL, it'll load root. And then we're just going to route it to this controller. So you're going to say index. So this is the name of the controller. Or sorry, to do. This is the name of the controller, and then you're going to say the method that you want, and that's index. And remember, so you should have this method in your controller called index. All right, the next step after that is we're going to create a new view. So go into your views folder, and then you should have a folder called to-dos. And you notice that's the name of the controller you just made. So you want to go into here and create a new file, and then you're going to want to name it whatever. So I'm going to name it index.html.erb. So you'll notice that this is the same index that I use here. It's the same as in my controller. I said def index. That refers to this. So what Rails does is it automatically maps the method name to the view name. So unless you tell it otherwise, it's going to assume that you want that view that's the same name as the method. Cool. And then let's just make it simple. Just make it say hi. All right, so let's fire up our server again if it's not running. And when you reload that page, it's just say hi. Is everyone not at this step? We're going to take a break here. Make sure. Okay, so you're not. Raise your hand high. Okay. All right, yeah, let's take a step back. Okay, cool. Okay. Okay, cool. I'm just going to go around one by one. If anyone else is there, just ask you to take a second.
Did you get like people set up a little bit?
Yeah.
Bring it back a couple steps as well.
Yeah.
They're like having trouble.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'm just gonna go through it. Cool. So we're just gonna start from scratch. I'm gonna go slow this time, sorry. I move fast. Cool. Alright, so let's start again with a new project. Can everyone hear me? Cool. So we're just gonna start from scratch. I'm gonna move a little slower this time. Sorry about that. Move fast. Cool. Okay, so we're gonna go back to whatever directory is above the app directory you made. And then we're just gonna do this again. So I'm gonna create a new one. And just for consistency, let's all call it the same thing. Can everyone see the terminal pretty well? Everyone can see that? Cool. Okay, so go ahead and run that. Cool. And if you ever get lost, just put up your hand and then you name it Hacktorial like this. Like that. Cool. Cool. And is everyone good with that? Can you put your hand up if you're not good with that? Cool, cool. Awesome. Didn't lose anyone yet. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make our controller. So you're going to say Rails generate controller, and you're going to call that controller to-dos, like that. Okay. You can go ahead and run that. Oh, make sure you go into the directory, not what I did. So go into the directory, and then run that command. So you should run that. I have the server running, so. Cool. Hey, is everyone at this step? So everyone should right now have seen this. It should have created all these files and listed it like that. Is everyone good? Did I lose anyone? Good. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. So now the next thing we're going to do is sort of to demo how to do routing. What you're going to do is go into your text editor, and you want to bring up the file. You want to go into the config folder, and then open routes.rb. Cool. And then you should see something that looks exactly like that. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to say the root of the website. So again, that'd be like google.com without anything after that. Do root. And then you're going to say the first thing you're going to put is the name of the controller. So in that case, it's going to be to-dos. And then you're going to put the method, which we haven't created yet, but you'll see that in a second. And we're just going to call that index. So the convention is controller here, method here. So let's go ahead and create that method. So we're going to want to go get out of the config folder, and then go to app, and then controllers, open the to-dos controller that we generated. Cool. You want to try it? Cool. So then we're going to create. Yeah, so I just opened to-do controller. We're going to create a new method called index, and that's what we just pointed to in the route. So it should just look like this. It's just a stub. Just having it there means that Rails knows what to do with it if anyone tries to look for index. Cool. So that's the controller. Now let's make sure our views configured properly. So go back to app, and then open views. You should see a folder that was automatically generated called to-dos. All of the views for that controller should live in that folder. And then you're going to create a new file in that folder. In that folder, you're going to have a new app. That folder is the to-dos and views. We're going to, what did you say? The folder should have already been created for you. It's in views. Yeah, to-dos, yeah. So in that folder, you're going to create a new file, and it's going to be the same name as the method that you made earlier. So if you remember, that was index. So you're going to say index, and then you're going to say the file type that's going to be sent to the user. So in this case, we're sending HTML. If it was JSON, I put JSON. If it was XML, I put XML. And then Rails uses a file type called ERB, which just represents something that's sent back as a review. Cool. So you're going to save that, and then let's just put something really simple in there. Put just that. Cool. Yeah,
What folder is this in again?
this is in app/views/todos. And then it's index.html.erb. Cool.
And then what do we type in? Hacktorial?
You can type in whatever, but yeah, for just consistency, just type in Hacktorial and making it in H1. Cool. So now we can go back to our command prompt, and let's just make sure everything's working. We want to see the text that we put into the index file. So you're just going to fire up a new server. Cool. And then if everything works, you should just see what you put there. So it's Hacktorial. Is everyone at that page? Everyone good? No. Hey, Richard, do you mind helping out with it? Over down here, or wherever. Yeah. Oh, okay. Use a Q. Cool. Okay. So let's just wait here for a minute to make sure everyone gets here, just because this is. Does everyone get the fundamentals of what's going on here? So we're going to routing first. Routing is sending it to the controller, and then the controller is sending it to the Okay. In your routing folder, what's in your routes.rb? It's the odconfig/routes.rb file.
The root one?
Yeah.
That's where we type root.
Yeah.
Root,
Parentheses. Okay.
But it's in gray for some reason.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yes.
Before you name the hash.
Let me go around. Yeah, so you can Yeah. Yeah, so that's what we do, just Okay, so it looks like there's an issue with Ruby's implementation on Windows. So instead of, so a lot of Windows users have been having issues, which now makes a lot of sense. So if you go back to roots, if everyone wants to do this, just so we're on the same page, go into config, and then routes. Instead of doing it like that, you're going to do and then let me make sure that works. Cool. So yeah, so instead of what we did before, you're going to do two because that works on Windows, that we're on the same page. So that any Windows users, that should fix the issues with routes. Cool. Awesome. So is everyone good with that? Yep. Anytime you change routes or anything in the config folder, you have to restart it. Generally, you're good, though if weird things start happening, it's always better just to restart the server. But otherwise, you don't need to. Cool. All right, so now what we have is kind of useless. So let's go ahead and start adding some functionality to this. Everyone's good, right? Everyone. Unless you tell me, I'm gonna assume that we're good to go. Two routes. So yeah, so because they bug with Windows, we want to make sure it looks like this. That's not fixing it for you?
So the server's already running.
Alright. Any other remaining issues? Oh.
Probably just the
Okay, yeah.
And neither did I. They turn
You're in the right color.
This sort of problem I think it's really
So there's been a bug for Windows users that's been causing a lot of issues where if you had an installation of Ruby before, it looks like there's some conflict in a JavaScript gem. So basically, in order to fix that, if you're on Windows, you can just go to App, Views, Layouts, Application.html, and then this line says JavaScript include tag. We're not going to use JavaScript today, so we can just get rid of that. In the future, you'll probably have to do a Ruby reinstall because it looks like there's some bug somewhere. Yeah, don't know it. But you should still, everything should still work. Cool. So if you're on Windows and you're getting some weird error about JavaScript and it says something about JavaScript, definitely remove that line and that should get you straight. How's everyone doing? I know it's kind of crazy, but after this, all the configuration issues are gone. We should be good to go. Get into it. Cool. All right, so let's get into it. So right now what we have is like a pretty boring website. Let's make it do something. Yeah. Okay, so go back to your command prompt, and then let me make this a little higher for everyone. Everyone can see this, right? Yeah, cool. So what we're going to do is create a new model. And what, like I was talking about earlier, a model is a way of representing data in a way that we don't need to interact directly with the database. We're just talking to a Ruby object, which is a lot more fun to talk to. So what our model is going to be is pretty simple. It's just going to be a to-do list item, right? So a to-do list item might have what the list, what it does, and if it's done or not. We're going to keep it real simple. And the way you do that is we're going to run another generator. This time, we're going to run the model generator. So in Ruby, the convention for a model is a model name begins with an uppercase character, and it's the singular form of whatever you're doing. So in this case, we're going to do to-do. So we need a couple fields for this, right? We need somewhere to store this data. The first thing we need is, let's just have a description. We're not going to have anything too complicated. Let's just call it the to-do's title. So the convention here is, for the generator, it's going to be whatever generator you're calling. So this is the model generator, the name of whatever you want to generate, and then any options. So for us, the options are going to be the fields we want. So let's say the data type. So it's just going to be a string. And then you're going to say if it's done or not. And that's going to be a Boolean. Cool.
You want to say what kind it is?
What is it?
What was the Boolean for?
Yes, the Boolean saying what kind it is. So for us, we're just going to go for a very simple website and just have done or not done. Very simple. Cool. So if you go ahead and run that, make sure you boil it. Cool. So that should run. Does anyone have any issues with that step? The command again is right there.
Should it be Rails?
Yeah, sorry, I typed Rail. Yeah, sorry about that. Does everyone like understand the concept of like the app we're building? It's literally just like a very simple to-do list. Like you can add things. Are you running exactly this? I actually typed Rail earlier. I fixed that, but that's probably what it is. Yeah. So sorry about that. I just typed it.
There's another bug that's like
Yeah, sure.
Okay, guys. For those of you who are still having problems and had the files that look exactly like his, if you go to the public folder, look for an index.html or just index thing, and delete that. And when you do that, it should work. So if you still, if like all the files look the exact same, but you're still getting the Rails like default landing page, then you want to delete what? Index.html just index.
If you're not having any issues, though, I just wouldn't worry about it. At that point, if things are working now, they're not going to break. You've guys successfully configured Rails environment, and we're ready to start building. Cool. So is everyone good on this step? We've created a new model called to-do. Cool. All right. So not to get too much into the database part of this, but all of the data is, of course, is being stored in a database. Just because you don't think about it doesn't mean it's not there. So this is the one part of Rails where you do sort of explicitly deal with the database, and you're only going to do this once for today. So what we're going to do is rake db migrate. So basically what this command is doing is it's looking at the model that you just created and is seeing what does the database need to do in order to support that model. And it'll do all that for you. You don't have to take it. Just hit enter. And wait a little bit. And as you can see, it's migrated both of them. So it's created a new table called to-dos automatically. And then from then on, we're not going to worry about the database today. Cool. Cool. Okay. So now we're like pretty close to creating something that actually works. So just so that you have something to look at to like make it doing, we're just going to create something new real quick. So Rails, one of the cool features of Rails, which is one of my favorite Rails is a console. So if you just type in Rails console, you go into the console. So what we're going to do is let's create a new to-do list item. We're just going to call it to-do. This is going to be, so we're going to call the constructor on to-do, and we're going to save it to this local variable. Something important to note is it's not being written to the database until you explicitly tell it to write it to the database. And we'll do that in a second. Cool. So you can see it has all these fields. We're just going to write to each one. So don't worry about ID now. The Rails take care of that. But let's just give this a title. And let's say complete Rails Hacktorial. Yep. And this is all in the Rails console, just in case. So this won't, none of this will work until you enter the Rails console, which is a program. Cool. And then let's just say it's not done. So you're going to say, cool. All right, and now we've completed all the fields we want. So we're just going to say to-do.save. And if you see something that says the SQL and then commit transaction equals true, then you're good. So now we have something in our database, so that way when we start playing around with this, you won't be totally confused about what's going on. Does everyone have this SQL statement on the board? It should say SQL and then all this stuff. And then the most important part is commit transaction equals true. If you have that, you're good to go. Is anyone not getting that? Cool. All right, so now, yeah, what's up? So just to sort of recap what we did here in the console, is we created a new instance, a local instance of to-do. So this isn't written to the server, but we can still interact with it. Then we filled it out with its content. So that was the title and whether or not it was done. We said it wasn't. And then we did to-do.save. So until then, nothing has touched the database. Once that save is called, it's adding that item to the database. And what's it? Cool, awesome. So now we can start making things work, which is the fun part. So let's bring up, go into app/controllers, and then pull back up your to-dos controller. So let's make this actually just do something out of the box. So this is in app/controllers/to-dos controllers.rb. Does everyone have that? Cool. So whenever we want to make a piece of data accessible in the view, yeah, what's up? I just close out the console. So yeah, so after you're done to do that save, you can go ahead and close out the console and bring up your text editor. Whenever you want to make a variable accessible in a view, you make it an instant variable like this. So we're going to say to-dos equals to-do.all. So basically what this means is that we're going to the to-do model, getting everything, and dumping it into this. And this @ sign here makes it so that we can access this within our view, and automatically will go there if you put the S sign there.
Why are you representing some years?
What do you say?
Why are some capitalized?
Yeah, so anything that's capitalized like this is going to be a mod in Rails is going to be a model. So in this case, when it's lowercase like this, it's going to be like a local variable. But when it's like this with a to-do, this will always represent your model. And in Rails, models shouldn't have this is a convention, but they shouldn't have they should be singular, and they should begin with a capital letter. You can do other things, but like that's a recipe to do things stupid. So just don't do it. Yes. So if it's capitalized, it's going to be a model. Cool. So what's happening here is if I ran this code, it'd be dumping everything, which is just our one to-do item, into this variable. So let's go ahead and display that. So we created that in our views folder. So this is in /app/views. Let's bring back and then go into to-dos. Bring up your index.html.erb. And then let's make it actually do something, right? So this is sort of an interesting way that Rails handles this. Is what if, let's say that you have a view, but you actually do want to run code in it. Ideally, you want the majority of your code in the controller, just out of like good habits. But of course, sometimes you do want to put code there. Otherwise, things get weird. So the way that you do that is you're going to have an open tag and then %. So sort of if you've worked with PHP, there's a similar construct where you'll have like this in the PHP. Well, in Ruby, on Rails, you do it like that. So we're going to do a loop. So we're going to access that views list that we had before. And you can say .each. So remember .each allows you to do it. And let me double check that. All right, cool. So do, so we're going to make a loop. And then we're going to feed that into to-do. Cool. And we're going to close that. Cool. So let's just put every one of these into a list item. We're going to make it simple. So we're going to create a new unordered list. And then put each one of them into a list item. So another construct that's very similar to the one we dealt with before is if you do the same thing, if you do this, and put an equal sign here, it will print whatever is in there. So directly. So you don't need to tell it to print it, it'll just do it. And in this case, let's just print the name of whatever the to-do was. So we said, what do we call it? We said to-do.title. So you're just going to say to-do.title, and make sure you close out. Cool. And close your item, and close your list. And then make sure, this is easy to forget, make sure you close your loop. So this is still Ruby, so you still have to say end. Cool. Okay, so go back to your page. Oh, yeah, definitely. So everyone should have that.
What was the JavaScript thing that you had in there?
It was... yeah, I can show you. It was in, you go into app/view/layout/application.
Second how live,
Okay,
that's
thanks.
UL.
Yes, it is. Probably. Oh, I probably messed up. Yes, it is. Good catch. Cool. So if everyone has that, let's go. If you're still in your console, you can go ahead and exit out. So there you go. So this is pulled from our database, and you should have the first list item there. Is everyone good on that? Does everyone have that on their screen? Cool, awesome. So you can sort of see how fast that was. If we didn't have to deal with these configuration issues, we probably could have done this in like a minute, right? Like if you had already done this before, you could get to this step. But this is like a huge step because it doesn't get much more complicated after this. Yeah, so make sure that you start running. Make sure if you're not here, make sure you've exited out of your console and you've started up your server again. Cool. Yeah, do you want to see the code? Yeah. So this is what should be in your index.erb. Yeah, I can pull it up. Is that still an issue? Okay. Okay. Yeah. So let me pull it up. It's in app views, to do, or sorry, not to do's, layouts, and then application.html.erb. Yeah, and then just go ahead and delete that line. Cool. All right, everyone good on that step? All right. Yeah, let me pull it back up. So it's just a line that says JavaScript include tag. I can pull it up. So it's this JavaScript include tag that, yeah, just go ahead and delete that. Cool. All right. So is everyone good here? Have I lost anyone? Yeah. Hey, Richard, do you mind to help us? You may need to, if you haven't already, if you kept your server running, you may need to restart it. If you're getting errors, that could be an issue. Okay, so let's add a little bit more functionality. Let's add the ability to add lists from out the console. What's up?
Mine still just has the page that says Hacktorial.
Okay, did you save?
Yeah, but remember when you did slash test, you did slash test.
Yeah, okay, so we can fix it now. So we're going to go back to routes. The root is great for when you just want to do things simple, but there's a really cool function of Rails called resources, which allows you to not have to like write out as many routes. So if like, let's say that you had a route for editing something, creating it, there, etc. Like, there's a lot of things. Like you could delete it. All those things you have to create different routes. But fortunately, routes just gives us a cool tool where we can just say resources and then to-dos. And that will automatically create all of the routes you need. So let's go to your routes file. And now that we're done suggesting, you can go ahead and add that.
So somebody still on like the step where you went into the Rails console and did like app to-dos equals to-do.new. Yeah. So he's getting this exception that's thrown. You can't find the to-do class or to-do model.
Does it exist?
I don't think so. No.
Right. Did you create? Should add it.
Okay. So that would be Rails
generate model.
Generate model is to-do.
Model. To-dos. And then the fields.
Okay.
Do you remember the fields?
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. So yeah, so go ahead. Is everyone updated the routes? Nope. Yeah.
I'm getting a routing here.
Yeah, so we have to fix that, yeah. That's the next step, yeah. So yeah, we can go ahead and do that.
People like stuck on like the to-do stage. You wanna
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So, who was having issues with like to-dos and other errors?
Okay, so let's take that one. I'm gonna say that. Anyone else this wrong? You need to stay at the end.
So then, once you have well, it's designed as
Oh, yeah. Okay, yes, that's right. Yeah, it's initially good.
it is
All right, so now now what you're gonna do is go back to your browser, and then you should see, if you go to the root, you should see this. But now you're gonna go to dos like this, and you should see the page you made. So basically, what resources does is it automatically applies the principles of REST, which are basically using HTTP verbs to modify objects. Don't worry about it too much, but it just means that in /todos. Okay. Do you have the you need to put resources in your routes. Let me show you what that looks like. So if you're getting an error when you go here and you're not seeing your list, it's likely because you have something issue with your routing. So your routing should look like this. Cool.
Wait, did we delete the word through thing?
Yes.
Oh, we took that out?
Yeah. So it should just look like this.
Jeff had an exciting idea in which we would put it all in the repo, and then anyone who got fucked up would just clone the whole
Yeah.
Mine is slightly lagging behind though, so I can't do that. But
What?
I said my version's lagging behind, or else I'd do this. But if you want to do it,
It would have been better if I'd already did it. Hey, it's working? Cool. So we're just changing it to get rid of a lot of the code. If we went through every single route, we have to do a lot of changing to the route file. So basically, this just will add a route for get, post, delete, hash, and now automatically. It is the same file. That's right. Sorry. Yeah. So just to make sure that everyone's working.
did Richard tell you about like the
Yeah, it's too late that though.
really?
Well, I mean, I have to do the other stuff first.
Okay.
Yeah.
You did a GitHub thing?
I mean, I think it's not going to get much more complicated if everyone's like at this point.
Because there's a couple people.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, I can throw it up on GitHub if that helps. Okay, yeah.
What's your GitHub thing? It was like that was the first one I had. Does everybody know how to use GitHub? If you're stuck, you can get the repo.
So wait, I'm going to throw this up on our repository, so if you get stuck, you should just be able to clone it and then move from there.
Stuck, if you don't know how to use GitHub.
Cool, yeah, so if you get stuck, the entire project as we go, I'll be continuing pushing it to GitHub. So if you go to github.com/myusername ethernetdan/rails Hacktorial, then you should be able to see it, and I'll keep this updated as we go. So that way if you get stuck, you can sort of see what's the difference between this one and yours. Sure, yeah, let me throw it up there. Cool. Yeah, so if you get lost from now on, just go on and check that out. Cool. Okay, so if everything, let's get back to it. Cool. So everyone's at this point. Cool. So let's have the ability to add it. Obviously, we don't want our users to go through the console.
Are you doing and
Cool. So everyone has a page like that. It should be localhost/todos like this. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. So let's add a little bit more functionality. Let's add a page where you can go and create a new to-do list, because obviously we don't want our users going through the console. So let's call that page new. So let's create a link on the top of the page. This is on the index.html.erb. So we're just going to have them go to to-dos/new. Cool. So everyone have that, and it should look like that when you're done. Yeah, sorry, yeah. Yep, so new to do. So basically we're just making a link at the top. Eventually you're going to be able to click this. If you click it now, it won't work, but we're going to add that functionality next. Cool. All right, let's keep going. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add that functionality we just mentioned. So we're just going to do new. Yep. Yeah. So cool. All right, so we're gonna go to our controller. So this is to-dos_controller, and we're gonna add this new action. And basically, all we need to do is prepare the model to create a new one. So the way we do that is we're gonna do to-do equals to-do.new. So this is similar to what you did in the console, but here we're just preparing a new object to be inserted later, and get back to them. So now let's write out the view for that. So does everyone have this change to to-dos that controller? To-dos controller? Cool. So let's go create a new view. And we're going to call this to go into your to-dos folder in views. Yep, so it's in the to-dos folder. And then we're going to call this new.html.erb. So if you go ahead, you can go click now. That should work. So if you click that link, it should now work. That means that you've successfully created the right method inside the controller and have created the views. So actually, it should just be a blank page. Wait. Yeah, it should look like this. So everyone's able to click that link and go to a blank page. Cool. So let's start filling out the page. On this page, it's just going to be a form where you can go ahead and enter the details of it. Rails gives you some methods to help out with that. So we're just going to use that to make it a little easier. So Rails is pretty smart when it comes to forms. It automatically handles a lot of the really annoying stuff that happens when you have to deal with forms normally. So the way it does that is it knows what the data is. So it knows the input it's getting, but it also knows what's in the back end. So if you do try to do something kinky and try to send the server something that doesn't match the back end, it won't let you.
Where do we create that new page at?
So the new page is inside the to-dos folder inside the view folder.
Okay. And what's it called?
It's new.html.erb. So then we can go ahead and give it a title. And on your page, if you click the create new to-do link, you should get it. Cool. So let's add a little bit more.
You haven't put anything in the news and
That's what we're working on right now. Yeah. So what's on the screen is the new.html.erb. So we're going to use one of the internal Rails methods, and basically what that allows you to do is to not worry about like validation or any sort of the attacks that involve with forms. Rails will take care of all of that, and all you have to worry about is setting it up correctly. So you're going to tell Rails that this is for to-dos. Or for to-do, sorry. Okay. Now let's add a label for the to-do field. So I say F. Basically, this will just go through all the parts of to-do. So you can say F.label, and then just make sure you tell it it's for title. That, and make another one. This is where you actually type in. And then this is going to be for title again. Cool. And then let's add a break. And then we're going to add the checkbox so that you can go ahead and check that. Yep. This is going to be for our done field. We'll add a label for it. And then we're going to add the actual box. Cool. And then the most important part of the form, we need to make sure you actually can submit it. So, oh, what? Okay. I wouldn't worry about it too much for now. We can go back to it in a second. And then make sure you close out of the block here. Cool. So if that is done correctly, cool. All right, so that's your new. I'm just going to put this over here, and then we're going to have to make one change to our controller. Oh, actually.
Need an equal sign with one more.
Yeah. Yep.
No, you have to put in an equal sign.
Hmm?
In front of form, put equal.
That's just an internal thing. It'll,
They work.
all right. Oh yeah, sorry. Great, good call. Yeah, so you have to print the form. Okay, cool. Cool. So you should have this. Cool. So if you go ahead, nothing's going to happen now because we actually have to save the data once you do it. But as you can see, what's happening when you hit create. What do you say?
Do you think we have to modify the controller?
We will for the next step, so we actually save the data, but not to actually display it. You should be able to view this without modifying the controller. I'm going to push this out to GitHub right now, so any questions? The GitHub should be updated with the most recent code. Yeah, so this should be your view, and then let me pull up the controller also. So your controller should look like this, and then your new view should look like this. Is everyone good on that? Everyone? Yeah. Cool. Okay, let's keep going. So the next step is you can see what happens here when we try to submit this. It sends this to the server. Basically, what we need to do is now add some logic so that we actually save that information. So we're going to go back to our controller and create a new method called create. That's going to get called anytime someone tries to submit data to us. Next, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and create an object to represent the to-do being saved. And we need to take the parameters that are coming in. So you can access parameters in Rails by saying param. And then in brackets, you're going to say the object that you want to do it. So in this case, it is to do.
Should it be at to do?
Yeah, yeah. Cool. So, okay, so you're going to go here, and then you're going to take this hash, and then in Rails, what I was talking about earlier about security, in Rails you have to explicitly tell it what you're allowed to submit. So for example, let's say you're building a banking app, and someone's like updating their name, you don't want them to be able to update their balance at the same time. That wouldn't make any sense. But because Rails makes it really easy to build that, you have to explicitly say what you can update. So here we're allowing people to edit title and done. So that will generate a new object that's stored locally. So this to-do will be populated with whatever we send to it. So then we're going to go ahead and save it. So after this is called, it'll save. Basically, .save will return true or false. It will return true if it was successful, and false if it wasn't. So we're just going to have it redirect to, if it's successful, do this. We'll have it throw an error, so I'll just paste that in. And then if it's not successful, have it render the new form, which is the form that we're on right now. So it'll just take them back to that. And we're not going to deal with errors right now, but Rails will have errors and there's ways to deal with them, but we're just not going to worry about that right now. Cool. So at this point, we have a bit of a functional app. We can go in. I'll give you a second to get your controllers like this. And I'll push this to GitHub right now. Cool. So once you've implemented that logic, we actually have a fairly functional app. So if you go into here, you can see that it's added there. And you just keep going. So actually, yeah. Is everyone at that stage? Is everyone able to create a new to-do item? Cool. How's everyone doing? Looking good? Yeah? If you have any questions, I can.
I didn't finish the end part.
Yeah, let me pull that up for you. So these are the files. This oops, shit. Cool. Yeah, we should put the name there. We don't have to. Yeah.
Why do we call it product? Is that just like the name of the If we can submit it, it's supposed to give us an answer.
No. Okay.
Oh, it's easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Did you
Cool.
Yeah, you should be here.
If you are on Windows, you might need to remove that.
Really?
Yeah. All right, I'm just gonna have to buy a Mac. Like, if this, I thought I would be able to code on Windows.
Wait, what?
Actually, I think the difference is that we have Ruby 3.2 and we have Ruby 4.
I don't know, I just downloaded what today was.
Yeah,
Whatever
yeah, me
is
too.
out
But
today. I literally just downloaded
they
it.
probably ask you.
Yeah, because Windows and
Right.
and that one is not.
I hate that.
Okay, yes, that should do it. Yeah.
I didn't have it. Yeah.
Okay, so Windows users, there's a bug because you're on Rails 3.
When did 4 come out?
4 came out relatively recently. I guess they haven't pushed it. I thought they had pushed it to Windows. But you just want to delete that permit.
Yeah, you want to do that permit all the way.
Yeah, so delete that. If you don't do this if you're on anything else, because if you're on Linux or Mac, this will break it. So only do this if you're Windows. Yeah.
Update.
Yeah. Is it an update?
I don't know, like, are you Windows?
It's a big.
What does the done box, is that even supposed to do anything yet?
Hasn't done anything yet. That's the next thing. It is working though. So if you go into the console, you can see it's working.
So you move down permit for Windows?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for Windows, yeah, just remove this. But Unix users don't do this.
You just gotta remove where it says, like, it should say params. It should say params, bracket, semicolon, to bracket, parentheses. And then just refresh it. How do we upload this to GitHub to, Heroku?
Oh, is it? Yes, that's what we're gonna be doing next. So let's get this on Heroku. Is everyone good here? So cool. The next step is, does everyone have Heroku toolbelt? Cool. Yeah, if you do, it should be pretty easy to go. So the first thing is you're gonna do is you're gonna log in. If everyone created a Heroku account, then you just fill it in. I've already logged in, so you're gonna do it. So it's just Heroku login.
You can do that from anywhere?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Earlier when I was testing, I thought I had to go like to where the Heroku was.
Cool. So I've already logged in, so I'm not going to do this, but everyone wants to make sure you've authenticated properly and everything's good to go. Cool. I'll just give you a little bit of time to do that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It says that my account doesn't have SSH public keys within it. I'm actually choose between GitHub RSA.plus or ID RSA.plus.
You can do ID RSA. Okay, cool. Is everyone good on Heroku? Everyone's done Heroku login and successful? Awesome. Cool. Let's keep going. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to add everything in. Heroku uses Git to talk to Heroku. So we're going to create a new Git repository. So you're going to say git init, and then you're going to run that. And then you're going to add everything. So you're going to do git add dash uppercase A. So that basically adds all of the files in that directory. Then you're going to go ahead and commit.
Is that minus?
Oh, is it? Yes, yes. This is all inside of the directory that you're in, that the app's in. And then you're going to give a commit message. You can just stay in it.
What is minus?
That's message. That's just a commit message. Cool. So after you're done, you should, if you say git status, it should say nothing to commit, working directory clean. Yep. Yeah, I had already committed, so I don't have that, but yeah, there should be.
And then after you type what?
After you commit, you can say status, and if it says working directory clean, nothing to commit, then you're good to go.
Working directory clean is uploaded already?
Yep.
Like anybody can download it?
Nope, that's the next step. We've just initialized it, but we're very close. All right, so the next step is you're going to just say Heroku in the directory where you did initialize the Git repository. Say Heroku create. And I guess I do have to log in.
After you hit Heroku create, remember?
It's not like me. Huh. Okay. Well, it should say something about Git. Does everyone?
Type in Git Heroku create, you can enter.
Yeah. So if you hit Heroku create, it should say that it's added a new remote. Does everyone say that for everyone? Cool. And now we're gonna go push live. So you just say git push Heroku master.
Mine says something about. Oh, wait, never mind. You just type yes, but you get to that question about the non-authenticity of things.
Yeah, yeah. So you just they'll do it the first time. Just accept that. Yeah. And is it deploying successfully for everyone?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Oh, mine says push rejected. Failed to install React.
Huh.
Failed to install gem key and bundle. Or I mean, it says it's rejected and
Let me take a look.
gem.
Yeah, I would say yeah.
They fixed that.
Okay. So the next thing.
Asking for fast grade.
You would do nothing, or you set it.
Oh.
And did you do GitHub or you? What do you create?
I don't like
Okay.
No.
This is really hard. I guess to yeah, that's
I'm going to, it says I have an app. It says I have an app on it, but like,
It works? No. Can you put the tape after?
Yeah, it doesn't say. I'm not gonna-
Yeah, it's just checking it. So how do you log in again? And then put it on Yeah, so try that again.
It just won't, they won't, it keeps rejecting it.
Okay, yeah, so we have to change it first. So I'm just waiting for everyone to.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we can do that now. So right now, the database that we're using is actually built into Rails. It's called SQLite. It's essentially just a file that's written to an adapter that allows you to write to the file. You can't use SQLite on Heroku, so we just have to move this to Postgres. Postgres, which is a type of database. Yeah. So the first thing we need to do is go to Open, and then go to your config folder, and then you open the database.yml file. And at the bottom here, you'll see production.
What's it under?
It's under config database.yml.
What's config under?
It's in the root. It should be in the root of your app, or of your folder.
I'm sorry, I was in app.
Oh yeah, no problem. Cool.
Database YML?
Yeah, so then open database.yml, and then you're gonna make these changes. Just for production, leave development their default the same. So you're gonna put the adapter is gonna be.
So this is the last one on the page, right?
Yeah, it should be the last one.
And then we have to type code in there.
Yeah. Let me go check that. It should just look like this with production.
So we delete the whole database and timeout there.
Yeah, Heroku will take care of that for you. And then we have one more change, and we should be ready to push.
Do we delete, where it says, well, where it says test above that?
No, you don't do that. You can just leave it as
It
is.
says adapter SQL.
That's fine. We will never use test. Cool. And then the last thing we have to do is add the Postgres gem. So you're going to go to the root of your project and open your gem file.
Gem file that locker, no gem file.
Just gem file. And then you're going to say gem pg.
Where you write that down?
Just anywhere at the bottom. And then to prevent Heroku from getting mad, you can just go in and say group that. So for SQLite 3, you say group development, and then make sure the gem PG is at the bottom.
And then just group in development.
Yes. For SQLite, SQLite 3.
run everything in that.
Cool. And then after you've made the changes to those configuration files, get this out of the way. You can try.
And that's not going to mess with any files that are already out there, right?
No. Sure.
What did you just do?
So I did git push Heroku master. I have to make sure you've changed database YAML. Oh.
It's git push or the master. Right?
Yep. For some reason it's still.
In the database file, what did you change? You changed the production?
Yeah, I changed just to production.
How did I delete what was there? And
Yeah. Yeah, you can delete what was there.
It still failed to push.
Hmm.
And something about S2.
Yeah. So, okay, we have to create a new group real quick. So, it looks like Heroku does some, it checks to make sure you don't have SQLite 3, so we just have to make sure you can't see it.
So comment it out.
No, so we're going to create a new group around it called development, and then another one called test. Two. And then for the same thing down here, we're going to make one for production. This way, it won't try to use SQLite when we push it up.
And then just indent the gem part.
Yep.
But we can take out that group development part behind it.
Yeah, you can take that out.
And then we have to do around the
Yep. All right, cool. Let's see if Heroku's happy now.
Is it still doing it?
Yeah, it's for some reason not even.
The default is SQL Lite 3, SQL 3, or the other 5.
Yeah, we can try changing it. Let's just change that to development. So just take everything here. Okay, so actually we have to explicitly tell Heroku not to do it, I guess. So do Heroku in your terminal. Do Heroku config-set bundle without. Cool. And hopefully that works.
But is it equals development or something?
Oh yeah, sorry. It's right here. So Heroku. Yeah.
No, it's still where Jackson.
Yeah. So, was it? What area are you getting? Okay, so I'm having trouble with bundle. I think it's something really big. But after you do that, make sure you run bundle install so that you get the PG jump. And then after you set that flag, it should work. So that flag was just in case everyone didn't get it. Right here. So, has anyone tried pushing after they set that button? It was newer.
My mind did work.
It did work? Cool. So you're on it?
Yeah, it worked. I don't know how long.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so the last line of it should be like launching 2, and then it'll say that you're up. And you pull it up, and you start putting it on the app.
So this was the original push.
So if you say that URL right there, if you just go to your browser, that'll be here. But then so that's good. Oh, so sorry, slash. Make it Heroku log. And Heroku log.
This website is hard.
Oh, yeah, I don't think that's it. Yeah, of course. Yeah. You should be learning. That's I've never seen that. So usually what it does.
This is. Still.
And do you have any?
The first one time I did, and then I ran like one install.
No, okay.
That's an order. And like Jen installed it. And he kept giving me errors, but it actually worked.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Okay.
You're really switches.
Did you give her another thing.
Has anyone been able to like get on her? No. It looks like something's wrong with at least this instances. I don't have everyone.
Yeah, they're not. Sorry, I can bring it.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, so it looks like we're having some issues with Heroku, so we're probably gonna leave it there. But I hope someone can back to me out of this. If you follow the Heroku tutorial, it'll make it a lot simpler because you won't have to switch database types. So I recommend totally doing that. It's pretty easy to follow, especially now that I'm
And this whole session we've been like recording like what he's been doing, and it's going to be posted online, so you can like slowly go through it if you want to actually make this happen.
Yeah, and I'll make sure I put the GitHub up so that's updated so you can play around with it.
Yeah.
Cool.